Hey guys, it's me again. Let's just cut to the chase and get to why I'm making this video. Obviously, there have been people who have found my video that I made about engineering quite interesting. The one that I made a few years ago while I was still in college. It's still my most viewed video that I have on my channel. And I figure it was time to return to this topic considering it created a lot of dialogue, which I am very grateful for, don't get me wrong. I don't really have a plan as far as to kind of go with this video. I guess I'm mainly just trying to do a follow-up and kind of not necessarily reacting, but just kind of expanding upon what that original video was all about. Just to kind of catch all up on what's going on in my life, I am now working as an engineer. I have recently moved, although I'm not going to tell you exactly what I do or where I live, just for confidentiality reasons. But I am working as an engineer, and I've been doing it for a few months now, and I guess my general opinion of it is it's just like any other job. So needless to say, I thought it was a great and appropriate time to kind of comment on what I kind of think about the industry now that I am actually working in it, and to kind of address some of the things that was in my last video. Firstly, guys, I realize I didn't mean this to kind of be like very literal, but I originally said in my video that getting an engineering degree is not as hard, particularly as getting maybe like a law degree or medical degree. First of all, that's probably about half true. Getting a medical degree is hard. Are you kidding me? Trying to be like a surgeon or an oncologist or trying to be like a specialist in the medical field, that takes a lot of work, and that takes a lot of time and a lot of studying and giving up a lot of your social life to go and do something like that. Is the payoff very rewarding? Of course it is. But holy shit, your school life is crazy. I don't know if I was lucky or more fortunate than other people, or maybe I don't know, but when I was getting my bachelor's in engineering, I did have to study and I did have to put a lot of hours into it, but I didn't have to do what some people who go into the medical field had to do. Like, some people have to schedule their time to sleep. I didn't necessarily have to do all that. Now, I guess it depends on what field of engineering you go to. Some fields are probably more tough than others, and it probably depends on what school you go to as well. Or if you're trying to work hard to try and keep a real high GPA or whatever, I don't know. It could factor on many things. But I guess I can kind of bite myself on the tongue when I said the whole law degree thing. I just assumed law is hard. I figured being an attorney is hard. I always have thought it was kind of a hard thing to study. Certain fields like that may not be necessarily difficult, things like criminal justice or whatever, but being an attorney, I'm sure understanding law and trying to learn law is not easy either. But if anything, they're probably about equivalent as far as their difficulty when you're just getting your bachelor's degree. Getting your master's or your doctorate is probably a whole nother level, but just probably on the bachelor level, it's probably about the same, let's be honest. I also realized that a lot of the topics I talked about only applied to one type of engineering. Or at least when I was responding to some of the comments, a lot of them applied to only one field of engineering, and that one in particular is mechanical engineering, which is the field that I studied and the field that I am currently in. It goes without saying that I consider one of the harder engineering fields to probably be like petroleum engineering and maybe chemical engineering. Definitely petroleum. Considering that their pay scale is like double what mine is, but that's probably only because the industry is just so uncertain, which is funny because I actually do work in oil and gas. Spoiler alert, but I do work in oil and gas. So some of the classes or what it's like to probably go through school in general is probably a little bit different, but the core concepts are generally the same. You'll always take that fundamental of engineering class that I talked about. Everyone's going to have to take chemistry. Everyone's going to have to take calculus 1, 2, and 3, and maybe advanced calculus and some other hard forms of math like linear algebra or differential equations or what have you. So all of that still does roughly apply. And then lastly, I kind of have to address somewhat of an elephant in the room. However, I'm not being critical when I say this. I love it when dialogue is created between people when they watch, especially one of my videos. Of course, I'm not going to try and be, I'm not trying to be vain, but of course I'm going to be happy when people want to try and comment and respond to my videos. But having done that video as many years ago as I did, and having worked as an engineer now, I still believe a good chunk of what I said is still true. You really need to go into engineering with a different kind of expectation than what people try to feed you or try to sell to you. I wasn't trying to scare people away. That was never really my intention. I do encourage people to try and explore the STEM fields. I always do. But I have just, the whole point of that video was to let you know that you can't go into a field like this for the benefit of security later in your life. Are you going to have it? Sure. But I still stand by my liberal and progressive standpoint where you don't need to pursue a career in a field that you think you're not going to enjoy. And it's not going to be worth sacrificing your money and 4 years of your life trying to go through something and then work in a field that you're not going to enjoy. I've been pretty fortunate. Of course, the future could change, but I've been pretty fortunate personally that the job I have has been a pretty good fit for me. I'm still somewhat entry level, not doing like hardcore stuff, but I have gotten my feet wet, and I can tell you that it's always the field is different everywhere you go. You're never going to be in a place that's particularly ideal. Your job could be very, very stressful, or maybe it won't be stressful. Me personally, one way I deal with, and this is probably totally off topic, but one way I can deal with even a stressful job is if I just have good coworkers. And fortunately, I do. I do have very good people that I work with, and that's always a good thing. But going back to my main point, I pretty much am sticking to everything I pretty much said. I just still get pissed off when you have people who just try to pick up not necessarily pick up random people, but try to sell, particularly when colleges try to sell a program to you, making it sound like it's going to be awesome and amazing, and then you get there and it wasn't all that it cracked up to be. You know, I don't want people to fall into that trap, because engineering is hard, and just hitting that quarter-life crisis and just feeling like you're not in the right spot in terms of where your life is going is not a good feeling, and you don't need to be caught up in that. I think, again, you can just take your first few freshman level classes and try to gauge what it's going to be like going off that. Because, again, we're talking about a big decision that's going to affect the rest of your life. Having now worked as an engineer, and I hate to kind of belabor this point, it's hit or miss depending on where you go to work. It's just as far as what your environment's going to be like and what your life is going to be like as far as how much you have to deal with on a daily basis when you go to work. So I can't really tell you exactly what it's going to be like because it's different for everyone. I just got I'm fortunate that right now, being entry level, I'm not under direct responsibility of some of the bigger projects, as I shouldn't be. I wouldn't trust myself with the kind of stuff I have to do, with the kind of stuff some of the lead engineers have to do at my job, because of just my low level of experience. Now, I'm sure many of y'all are curious as to what I exactly do at work. I gave you a vague hint, is that I work in oil and gas. So, if you're not planning to work in the oil and gas industry, this is not going to apply to you. But, not going into much detail, because I can't tell you exactly what I do just for confidentiality reasons, but I can tell you that I do have interaction with people as far as when I have to work on a project, as far as when I have to get advice from the lead engineers, or when I have to go out into the labor area where all the labor workers are and try to reverse engineer stuff. I'll have to go technically on site and try to look at stuff and try to figure things out whenever I'm working on certain projects. But probably like 80 to 90% of the time, I'm at a desk in front of a computer. Again, that may not be true for everyone, but for me, that's kind of what it is like on a daily basis. I pretty much come in and I'm at a computer literally like at least 80% of the time. It's different every day, but I'm pretty much in front of a computer every day. Minimalistically, I probably have to rely on, I can't give an exact figure on it, but maybe as much as 10 to 20% of the knowledge that I took from my actual schooling in my education, if that. I think I have to kind of review myself, or I have to review myself on stuff that I kind of forgot nearly every day, but holistically, I don't have to rely on a bunch of untapped information, or I don't have to refamiliarize myself with a bunch of old information to try and do most of my job, because most of what I'm doing is usually working with things like Excel or having to work with graphic design software like AutoCAD or SolidWorks. It's a lot of what I have to do, and that's pretty atypical for actually a lot of entry level positions. They'll have you kind of start as somewhat on the designing process before they actually have you do any actual engineering. That's just a vague statement. It's not true for everyone or every company, but that's pretty kind of true for a lot of industries out there, that they, even if you don't apply as an engineer, let's say you apply as an engineering technician, but they see that you have an engineering degree or background, they may hire you in the hopes that one day they could promote you into being an engineer later. So just having a degree helps. I made that statement some time ago in one of my old I made that comment on that video, on my last video, and that's kind of true too. Just having a degree, having an engineering degree is gonna help a lot in terms of you just getting situated in a job. I will make a quick note about just trying to get work. I know this video is kind of stretching out really long right now, but I will make a quick note about just trying to get work. Don't make the mistake I did and start applying after you graduate. Internships always help, but I didn't ever actually have an internship. I just happened to run into a situation where a lot of the internships were for free and they didn't pay you, and the last thing I needed was to not get money when I was going to school. I needed to work a job that paid, even if it had nothing to do with engineering. That's what I personally had to do. But if you can get a paid internship, by all means do it. If you can get it part-time, a lot of them ask for full-time. But if you get a part-time internship, by all means go for it. But it's not absolutely necessary. Because I didn't have one, and here I am working as an engineer. But because I didn't start applying for jobs almost immediately or sometime before graduation, I went the whole summer without a job, and that's actually not real good. There are times during the year where recruiters will try and get new people into businesses. But that being said, there's a couple of tips as well. First of all, if you're the kind of person, because I was like this for a while too, don't try to stick relatively close to where you grew up. I know for some people that sounds kind of silly, but believe it or not, there are some people who try to get into the next major city that was close to where they went to school or close to their family. You don't really need to do this if you're one of those homebodies. You need to go ahead and try and throw your application out to different cities, and if you have to move, then do it. Do it. Move to a different city and start a whole new life, and it's great. And just keep in contact with your family. But you have to realize you're getting started in your career, and you're gonna have to make a move like that. You're just gonna have to. So I was trying to look for jobs that were somewhat local and wasn't having much luck. And the second I applied to the next major city that was like 100 miles away, I got like an offer like really damn quick after that. So don't be afraid to apply for places far away or out of state if you have to. Also, another thing, when it comes to big major companies like Fortune 500 companies that are hiring engineers all the time, and they have somewhat of a big talent pool, or a big talent pool of people that they need to hire, or won't consider. A lot of these bigger companies, you can put an application on their online website. It almost does no good unless you happen to know someone in HR. But here's my general advice to you, and I don't know if this is going to be controversial or not. Some people are going to disagree with me on this. You may have to try using a job agency to get you hired initially. I was kind of skeptical about it too. I did not think, I was honestly under the impression that it was like a tip agency, and I was just very scared of being on this somewhat of this 3-month probation where they're going to test me out, and I was going to have to basically work off the benefits and the payroll of what the job agency was giving me rather than the company I was working for. I know all of that sounds lucrative and it sounds scary initially, but if you're seriously trying to find a job desperately and you need the experience, use a job agency. They can help you out. They are hired. These agencies are hired by these big companies to look for people to put on their staff. That's why they're there, and it costs you no money. Don't be afraid to use a job agency, use a talent manager, whatever, go to expos, just whatever you need to do to try and, job agencies are kind of more of an indirect way to get yourself in the door, but keep in mind, these people, it's their job to try and find people like you to hire for these companies because they're being asked by these companies to look for people. And it's on a constant daily basis that this is happening. Even if it's not happening near you, it's happening somewhere else. So don't be afraid to use resources like that if you're struggling trying to find a job. That being said, I'm sure I may have missed a couple of things, but I just wanted to address and do a follow-up on that last video because apparently a lot of people were finding it interesting, which I'm totally grateful for. But the gist of it is that I kind of still do stick to most of what I said, in that if you are considering engineering, you have to know what you're in for. And it was never my intention to scare anyone off, but you just have to know what you're in for. It's not the easiest of fields to deal with, and you could be somewhat unlucky in the sense that after you graduate, you may get a job that is not going to be what you exactly expected. I'm sure that is true for a lot of people, but when it comes to engineering, it's just one of those types of industries and fields where you don't want to get it wrong because it's a lot of the same stuff. It's a lot of sometimes there's a lot of politics involved, a lot of bullshit involved, honestly. You can get into a certain industry like me, like oil and gas, where there's a big high risk of uncertainty of job security because the industry always goes up and down like a roller coaster, and you can get with a company that threatens you with like layoffs and stuff because the industry is just so undeterminate, and you got to be careful. I've been somewhat lucky that I have a good job, and even if I was to get laid off, hypothetically, I'm just getting experience all the time, the more time that I'm with them. So, again, pretty much I'm just sticking to what my original message was, and I think people found it positive, and I think they found it very enlightening. I think just sometimes when it comes to subjects like these, we just have to be a little bit more honest. Rather than me trying to sell you into engineering, I'm going to tell you exactly what it's like when you go to school. And it's somewhat of a grind the second you get started. It's just how it is. And you're going to hit a wall, just like I said in my last video, and you're going to go on an emotional roller coaster for the next 4 years of your life, and if you get it wrong at the end, it's disastrous, and you don't want that to happen. So, again, pretty much done with this video. As far as I'm concerned, I don't know if I'm really going to talk about engineering anymore after this. I may, but my main goal for this whole channel was to talk about topics of all different variety, and engineering this particular video just happened to be somewhat popular, and I thought it was appropriate to make a follow-up on it. I'm not saying I won't talk about this topic again, but I'm just saying I'm probably not going to try and address anything that was not new or try to follow up on anything that hasn't been discussed before. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please feel free to comment on it, positive or negative. Feedback is always good. Like the video, share it. I really think this is somewhat educational. I really think it's a video that aspiring engineers just need to see. And so, yeah, I'm going to kind of stop talking now because I've kind of been rambling on. But anyway, hope to see y'all soon, and goodbye then.